more weeping mothers as their child's body lie in the streets. No more hate from those whose tailored suits still resemble hooded white sheets. If God is willing and the creek don't rise. No more closing schools in all black neighborhoods meant to teach. No more lying about the numbers they said they couldn't reach. If God is willing and the creek don't rise. No more nightmares of breaching levees, black waters that did come, murder and drown. No more silence, tea parties, racial division, poverty. Yes, we can. The pavements we will pound if God is willing and the creek don't rise. No more leaving poor folks to die because they cannot afford medical care. No more singing, we shall overcome, because we're already there. No more political pushers who use our time to sell their lives. No more sacrificing the American people, leaving us with nothing but sighs. No more total audacity. Explosive fire is gone. Bodies are 9 plus 2. No more corporate all wanting their lives back. Indictment of criminal charges. The whole damn crew. No more use of our Gulf Coast water.
KK, you are savior. We having black and gold Super Bowl. Black and gold Super Bowl. Black and gold Super Bowl. We have the Goudat. 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 Goudat.
This is a terrific chance for New Orleans to really come together and to show that the city's back.
It's a real positive thing for everybody in the area. Just even making it here, but of course we want to see the Saints win the game.
Oh, we're dressed in our Cajun Sunday best. Today's Sunday, and we went all out for our Saints.
Marching in, oh, when the Saints go marching in.
I built this myself. He likes brandy and a cigar before every game.
So you give brandy and cigar and that guarantees a win?
You fucking right.
We live in Metairie, as Muhammad said. We had a foot of water in our house. We had a lot of roof damage, though. So it took about 8 months to get back into the house. We lived in a FEMA trailer. But I'm just so happy to be here. What a great celebration.
It means everything to be here, right now. This is for the city of New Orleans. Obviously this means a lot to our team and the players, but, it's only special if we win this game. So, just to make it to this point, it means a lot.
It's not only great for football, but also for the city. As we all know, Katrina was only 4.5 years ago, but we are people of perseverance, and we have the Goudat spirit. This is a new beginning for us. It's a new life for us. Without a doubt, Drew Brees is the leader of the inspiration for the city and the southern region.
Well, I've known Drew ever since he was that high. We had dinner Thursday night, and, we had a lot to talk about. He assured me that everything is all right.
This is a reward for all of our hard work. We've rebuilt ourselves. We've rebuilt the city. Every man, woman, and child has moved back to New Orleans.
The city is going to the promised land.
This is a prayer for our team, the Goudat Nation's team. Dear Lord, please keep our players from being injured and unhurt so that we can go and win this game.
God bless the Saints and keep us all safe.
Lord God, you love all the saints. The saints love you. Give us a victory.
Amen.
Amen. Goudat.
Let's hit it talk shit on 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's hit it talk shit.
The week of the game, we were looking for a way to steal a possession. We're trying to look at Peyton Manning's possessions, and usually there's 11 or 12 possessions during the stretch of a game. And how can we get one?
Saints trailing at the half, 10-6, and we'll be kicking the football away to begin the second half.
And we felt that there was a chance for us to get one there.
Thomas Morstead steps into the football, and it's an onside kick. And it's going to be back for 3, I believe. They're still fighting for it. No indication yet. Still a battle down there. Still a
We got it. We got it.
Boy, you're talking about not afraid. Sean Payton. He's going to pick it. Right ball. Come on.
Hey, this can't happen. We have the ball. Get on out of here. Get on out of here. Right ball. Right ball. Right ball. Right ball.
Breeze sets up the screen. Pierre Thomas. Thomas still on his feet. Down to the 5. He's going to score. 16 yards. And Pierre Thomas puts the Saints in the end zone for the first time tonight. And the Goudat back on their feet. And the Saints are in the lead. Second and goal from the 2. Here's the throw to Shockey. It's a touchdown. Manning in the shotgun puts Collie in motion. Looks in his direction. It's picked off! It's picked off! It's Tracy Porter again! City with the Lombardi, New Orleans. The miracle in Miami has happened. The Saints have won the Super Bowl.
Who that say they're going to beat them Saints? Who that?
Who that's Black and Gold Nation forever, baby.
Who that say gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that?
Who that? Who? Who that? Who?
Who that said gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Hold up. No fucking lie.
Saints winning felt real good. I mean, when you're down and someone has punched you in your gut, it's good to always have something to rally around. And it brought people together. And the smile and the tears that I saw on people's face was worth all of the tears that I had seen 4 years previously.
It's literally pinch me. Got to be dreaming. This can't be New Orleans. This can't be Louisiana. I've been here 42 years. I've never seen an atmosphere like it.
This team didn't just win the division. They didn't win a playoff game. This team is world champions. And the significance of that, 4 years removed from the greatest natural disaster in our country's history, is a credit to them.
The theme is hard work. The theme is sticking to it. The theme is never dying. The theme is coming through the worst that the world can give you and then coming out on the front end of it, not just average, but better than everybody else in the country. That mojo is just infusing everybody in the city of New Orleans, and they're very excited about what it looks like and what it feels like.
The Saints represent what's been happening in the city, in that when they got behind, this is the first time in the Saints history where we didn't give up. We didn't lose faith that the team could win. And that's exactly what's been happening in the city. You know, we were like, no, we can't wait to come back. We can't wait to rebuild. We can't wait, to put our culture back intact. And for them to win, divine intervention.
Well, the Saints win was huge. As you could tell by the reaction, I was going to that game, regardless of whether the Saints. But that's just thought that, being the mayor of the city of New Orleans, that the home team would kind of accommodate. Ended up getting some pretty decent seats in the club section, but I definitely had to pay for them. So now that the Saints have won and they're feeling so good, everybody's looking around at this recovery a little bit differently.
It was kind of like the Phoenix to me. It was like we were rising up out of the ashes, and I think it's symbolic. And that's a wonderful thing, because we need our people to have to see, hey, look, we're going to make this. We're going to come back. We're going to be what we used to be, and even more, hopefully. And I think it's happening.
I got some pleasure out of the Saints winning, but I was not a fanatic about it, because I knew one thing. After the Super Bowl on that Sunday, I was going to have to get up and figure out how I was going to eat the next day, how I was going to pay my bills, how I was going to be able to survive. I'm not a who dat. I'm a who is that.
Everybody's happy about the Saints. That's a good thing. it's great that they've won the Super Bowl, and it's really inspired folks here. It's given us something to be happy about. But at the end of the day, we got to realize it's a football game and a football team. And if we want to make something more of it, we got to be really determined. We got to be determined that we're going to use this to come together around something bigger, more lasting, more substantial, more sustainable, something that makes a difference in our lives.
Years later, here we are. The city of New Orleans is still undone, incomplete, and now we have British Petroleum, who has messed up the ecology, not only in Louisiana, but Alabama, Florida. I don't know how our government allowed them to get that far. Again, it just seems like the people who are responsible for making sure that the citizens are safe and protected, as I always say, they don't know 4 dogs got 4 assholes. So here we are again. It's the same old thing.
We were just getting to a state, with the Super Bowl, the Saints won. Everybody was happy. It was a great turnaround for the area. Everything's seems to be doing a lot better. And then they just totally knock us for a loop with this, man. You wonder, you think, well, what's going to happen? Do you want to stay living in a place like this?
There is no New Orleans. Cities have one straight line history. This is the city, if you look at the history of New Orleans, that's had yellow fever plagues where everybody died, typhoid, dysentery, flooding, civil war, burnings, slavery. Katrina is just it's part of a continuum. So it's still the same city, just struggling in many ways with the same problems. Where I'm concerned is it cannot go back to its knee-jerk boosterism. We're amazing. We're the best. Da-da-da-da. There's deep down a kind of weird inferiority complex that goes on in New Orleans. That people, as the one thing that unites everybody is both the feeling that they're spending their whole life telling everybody how great things are, but secretly they know they're not. And that creates a kind of schizophrenic attitude.
Right now we're sort of at a vertical point. And you can't stand at a vertical point and forever. You're going to tip one way or the other. And I don't know which direction it's going to go in.
We're broke. We're poor. We're suffering. We have nothing. We need to focus on struggle and not entertainment right now. I love my neighborhood. I love my people. But I understand clearly that we're on a plantation right now. And I'm trying to run away.
I always knew God had something in store for me. And coming out of the devastation of Katrina and being a positive role model in the community, doing the things we've done, I figured I owed that to my life to be positive. And I found me a wonderful wife.
I was working in the medical center for UT physicians, and everyone was talking about the devastation in New Orleans and everything that was going on there. And we were just talking about how, what we wanted to do and how, to find out how we could help. And then, of course, news broadcasts come across and said they were needing nurses and all medical personnel that would volunteer to report to the Reliance Center.
And that's when I saw, now Mrs. Green.
It was very busy in there, and there were a lot of people that were very ill. They had been drinking and eating sewage, basically, and so a lot of people were having gastrointestinal problems, and we were basically forcing fluids on them, trying to get them to drink and provide them with medications, antibiotics, or what have you. And so I encountered Curtis. He was dirty. He was filthy. He had a stench. I don't know if it was him personally, but I know everybody stunk, so I knew he did. It was just disgusting.
We didn't actually hook up then. It was real busy, and in my mind, I'm saying, man, I'm out here in Houston now. I was single at the time, and I said, I need to hook up with a lady. I mean, point blank, I need to hook up with a lady. I said, I need to find me a church-going woman who has a house, who will take me in.
Who has a house?
Yeah. Who has a house?
Whoa, wait a minute. Was that the first question or the second question? Do you have a house?
No, I didn't actually ask her anything. That was my thoughts, though. I said, I need to find me a woman, though. I need to find me a woman. And, well, anyway, I just saw her. We didn't actually have much to say, but she was very helpful to us. Did some different testing on us. And then I didn't see her anymore. Well, I'm a chef by trade. I worked in the food industry in New Orleans. So I was working at a restaurant, Westheimer in South Polk called Eatsy's. And she walked in again with some friends. I guess it was fate, but the first thing I wanted to do, I wanted to see her feet. So I came from behind me.
Whoa. Hold up. See her feet?
Yeah, she had some open-toe shoe. I have a foot fetish. The feet was pretty good. Her toenail polish was red, I believe, at the time, and she had on these wooden open-toe shoes, and it was pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good. So,
what happened if her feet would have been, like, jacked up?
Well, I don't think we would be at this point right now. Yeah, I guess that was fate. Faith and pretty feet.
We got into the Reliance Center, right? Like 6 o'clock in the morning,
We were
right?
the first bus to
we
arrive.
were the first one arriving. So I looked at Catherine and I said, what we gonna do? So she's looking for some place to clean Nicholas off, and it was like way up
I
in
asked where was the area for special needs people / children, and they said there wasn't any. And my mom looked around at the Reliance
Yeah, it
Center,
was the Reliance
and
Center.
she's like, we're getting the hell out of here.
And people was coming in. It was all dirty
and disheveled.
And I told Catherine, I saw a lady I used to work with up in New Orleans at the hospital.
You're about to go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you. I said, what did I tell you? I said, ooh, Catherine. I said, she's a steak. I said, well, damn, I must be stinking too. If she's
Because we're all, we're
from the
same place.
Immediately after Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans, and we realized that there was going to be a mass evacuation. I was the Houston City Controller at the time. I got a phone call from the current mayor, and I was informed that we were going to have to find something to do with this massive influx of human beings into the greater Houston area. We very quickly realized that these folks weren't going to be able to go back to New Orleans, and we needed to provide housing. And so my office was involved in putting the contracts together for effectively overnight housing for 35,000 different families.
Our pastor, Dr. Ed Young at Second Baptist Church in Houston, was contacted about all that was about to happen with Katrina, and he called together the entire faith-based community in Houston. There were about 600, I guess, ministers and representatives of all the churches, the synagogues, the temples, everything that you can imagine. We helped to get food there. We helped to get volunteers there. We had entertainment for the children, helped to set up all of the different kinds of venues that were there. There were beauty shops for the ladies. There were showers. There were. It was amazing. You go in there, you'd see a virtual city in George R. Brown.
There was some backlash from Houstonians. So there were tensions. There were dislocations in neighborhoods where every available rental housing unit was suddenly snapped up, and kids were going to already overcrowded classrooms, people in line for basic services, harder to get a seat on the bus, just everything that you could think of.
On a personal level, our reception, from my perspective, my experience has been enlightening, educational. It has even changed my worldview. By that I mean, since I've been here, I've seen white, upper middle class, Republican people reach out in tangible ways to lower class, impoverished black people. I've seen that.
No one really knows how many people came. No one knows how many people have decided to stay. There's a range of figures. The important thing for us here in Houston is knowing that whether the number was 50,000 or 100,000 or 250,000 in the original evacuee count, 5 years on, they're Houstonians now. The folks who needed to go back, wanted to go back desperately have gone back. The people who are here after 5 years, they're not going back, and they have been integrated into our city and embraced by our city.
We got situated. We found a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment, and then 1 year passed. It's like, okay, no school for Nicholas. Nicholas' school is not back up and running. Then the second year, it's like, okay, no school. And everybody was complaining about the good people of Allstate, but Allstate paid me. I have a home fully paid for in New Orleans that I cannot live in. I was forced to make a financial decision for one simple reason, and that's why I'm here in Humble, Texas, because there is no educational system for my disabled son who has autism.
Even before Hurricane Katrina, to my knowledge, they didn't have no good school for special needs children.
Correct. First time I was ever introduced or heard of life skills. Life skills class, which says it all. They teach them life skills. I went into the classroom. I bawled like a baby. There was a bathroom in this classroom, full kitchen, washer and dryer, because they do the regular curriculum, but then they teach them how to be self-sufficient. I've already met my son's teacher that's going to have him for high school next year. So I am up here for that one purpose, and there's thousands of families that can't go back who have children that are disabled. Thousands of them, and it is not fair. And ironically, it's Section 504 of the Educational Disabilities Act. The area code in New Orleans is 504. So y'all better get on y'all asses.
I can't believe I'm in Humble.
She always said, I hate Texas.
I hate Texas. I really do hate Texas. There's nobody here.
If we could, we were talking about this last night, if we could pick up everything that we have here and just move it to New Orleans, we'll be all right. You know what I'm saying?
Look at this. I'm telling you, nothing but destruction everywhere you look. Look at over here.
You know, the interesting thing about my mom that I love is that, you know, my mom is a very strong-willed person.
It's awful. I don't think okay.
I was nervous about her doing the whole scene. I got back to the apartment in L.A. and I said, do you realize what that entails? I said, do you realize how many people are going to be around, you know, while we're doing this? And my mom, she said, yeah. She said, but, you know, people need to see what we're going through.
Oh, look. This thing's way over here.
What is that?
That's the thing you gave me was over here. What is that over there?
What is what?
That.
That's that looks like your China closet.
The China closet don't have any business being over here. It's in the there. Oh, Lord. Pictures I had in there. So this picture's still up on the wall.
There's nothing on the wall.
Lord have mercy.
After, you know, we made the decision to come back, at the time I owned a small home uptown, and we cleared it out, and I let my mom and my aunt and my uncle, the three of them, they lived there for a period of time. And since it was uptown, it was closer to me. I wanted my mom to stay there. I wanted her to be closer to me and be uptown in a neighborhood that was developed, drugstores, grocery stores, everything was up and running at the time. But she had a desire to go home. So we found a young contractor to rebuild the house and started the process of renovating the house. And we took it down to the slab. I mean, you know, just about everything in that house is new with the exception of the exterior.
Oh, I love my kitchen, although I don't like to cook anymore.
Yeah.
But I love my kitchen.
Tell me about these cabinets.
Everything is right at hand. I don't like this. I don't like this at all.
All right.
You see, all of this cabinet space I didn't need.
somebody, my washing machine could have gone right back there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tried to make it easier to make it more like a kitchen.
Well, it was a kitchen before.
We only made a few modifications, but the contractor told me something that I thought was like really amazing. He said, man, in this neighborhood, back there in Pontchartrain Park, he said most of the folks were elderly folks. And he said 99.9% of them. When I start the renovation, I said, well, look, since your house is open, why don't we make some updates? Why don't we do this? We can do this. And he said, all of them said, no, can you just make it like it was? These were the things that we saved from the hurricane.
Your first trip to Europe.
Italy.
Yeah.
When I was in high school.
Yeah.
I bought these for you. I think I bought these in Rome.
Look, there's one little speck on here. I wanted it to stay. Katrina's dirt. So leave it stay there. That's a reminder.
Wow.
Yes.
Most people that are born in New Orleans, they stay in New Orleans. They love this city. You know, and I would say that every person who's moved away, despite the better schools, lower crime rates, higher incomes, they would still have something in their heart for the city of New Orleans, and they'd want to come back.
Well, this is what we in New Orleans call a neutral ground. Separates the two lanes of traffic. And when we first came home and they put us out of the community here and put up these barbed wire fences, we decided, well, we can't get back into where we used to live at, so we decided we were going to live on the neutral ground. So we created a tent city. And all along these neutral grounds, we had people living like 6 months after the storm, and we stayed out here until we found other places to stay because we knew they didn't want us back in New Orleans, so we were going to be in New Orleans somewhere. So we went from the tents to the FEMA trailers to other houses, but most of the people who lived out here, they're in New Orleans, they're back home, and now we're getting ready to fight to get that other 120,000 that we know want to come home. We're trying to get them back.
As of 2008, the number that I heard from the city's demographer was that the city was back to 70-some% of its population, but only 63% of the black population was back, which is to say that 37% of the black New Orleans population was still in exile. Some would never return, others were still trying to return and hadn't been able to.
This is a city made up of maybe 50% renters, and renters don't have the means to restore their homes. So after the storm, the damage continued through economic means, not through the storm itself.
With the advent of Katrina, we're now witnessing and experiencing rents at a level that we've never experienced before.
Before, the rent was $200 and $300 and $400. Now it's like $1,100 and $1,600.
I would get me an apartment down there, but I get what, $1,100 a month, like $1,200 a month. You know,
Almost
social
double
widows
the rent.
benefits. I go down in New Orleans where I was paying $300. What I was paying $380.
Yeah.
Nice apartment, a carriage house, almost $800 now. So hell, if I go down there and pay my rent and light bill, I ain't gonna have no money to eat.
You have a tremendous homeless population. You've got people who are squatting in abandoned homes. It's really rough what's going on here.
This part here, all of this area here, we have 1,500 families living here, mostly poor black women and children, and right now it's empty. These are the kind of buildings that they had before the storm. Solid brick that were built during the Work Progress Administration during the Roosevelt era. And during the storm, hardly anybody evacuated because we felt that we could survive. We had 3-story brick, solid buildings, and it was better than going to a shelter.
New Orleans was the first city to get housing projects back in the days of the New Deal. The first housing project Franklin D. Roosevelt signed off on was the construction of the St. Thomas Housing Project. When the St. Thomas opened in 1941, it was for whites. Only that's how it was back then. But there was also the Magnolia projects in 1941, which was for blacks projects were built from 41 up through the 60s. And with white flight, with the abandonment of the cities in the 60s, and with the scaling back of social services that got worse and worse and worse, the projects became all black. They acquired a fearsome reputation. They had been on a campaign of decommissioning the projects. St. Thomas had already been closed down and replaced with something called River Garden. The Desire and the Florida projects, the largest housing complex in New Orleans, had already been taken out. But the sudden evacuation of the city, the mandatory evacuation of everyone in the city, provided a unique opportunity to move all the people out and close the projects down, a process that would have taken years. So that the projects were not just boarded up, but the windows sealed with lead shields. People who had left quickly found themselves locked out, and they never got to come back.
So this is full, right-on government action to get rid of poor people in New Orleans.
I'm voting for demolition because I believe in my heart that the replacement of the St. Bernard housing development with a mixed-income community will do more for the development and improvement of District D than any other single step that we might take.
Stop the demolition! Stop the demolition! Stop the demolition! I'm not going to let the system walk over me, take away my pride, my respect, and my dignity. They're already trying to take away my home and my family, but today I will stand. If I got to lay down and die, I refuse to let the city of New Orleans kick me to the ground and walk on me. It's 100,000 black people, poor people displaced out of this city. I'm sick of you white liberals acting like you feel our pain. We built this city for free for 500 years. And you cowards, a lot of white-collar people are scattered across America and trying to tear down the public housing. Right. How cowardly are you to tear down the poor people, women and children? And then you're so cowardly, you won't even let your own New Orleans citizens who had the heart and strength to come back come inside.
It was on December 20th, 2007, when I and a long line of residents from New Orleans were standing in line outside of City Hall waiting to go into the council chambers to present our comments on their pending decision on demolishing the 4 public housing developments. While standing in line, they shut the gates to bar us from going into the chambers. And so this, created a lot of outrage. What's going on? Why are you locking us out of a public meeting? And the next thing you know, there are policemen on the ground with jugs of pepper spray, and they're spraying us. And inside, for folks who were able to get in, friends and allies working to, prevent the demolition of houses, they were tasered because they were demanding that let the people in. The council, I think it's pretty obvious now, made their decision to allow the Housing and Urban Development Office to move forward with demolishing those houses that were structurally sound, that people could move back into, that people had been working and organizing themselves for years and trying to get the Housing Authority to do better maintenance and security improvements at these sites. All of that advocacy meant nothing to the council members. What they were saying was the dollars to contractors, the dollars to developers. That has been the way in which post-Katrina decisions have been moved in that direction. How can you make this easier for developers to replan with quote-unquote new people? And we see, this, it all, constitutes ethnic cleansing.
I believe that prior to Katrina, public housing in the city of New Orleans was atrocious. I think it got worse after Katrina. And I'm not convinced that other than one public housing development being in Lafitte, all the rest of them were beyond repair, in my humble opinion. Lafitte probably could have been saved, but it would have been astronomical as far as the cost. The shell was solid and good, but all the internal wiring, all the internal plumbing, everything would have had to been, done from scratch.
You could not have closed Lafitte down when people were in it. And somebody said, ooh, they're gone. Now's the time. Close it down. And unfortunately, you don't have as nuanced a dialogue about social issues here as you do in some other cities. And so the projects are a symbol, right, for crime and poverty and problems. And so you had all these articles in the paper that were unrelentless, proclaiming, oh, this is all about concentrated poverty and this is a bad thing, and these flood-ravaged projects. They weren't flood-ravaged. There was no water in Lafitte. They could have been opened. But Alphonse Jackson up in HUD in Washington wanted to take them down because it was a national policy to get rid of public housing. So we said, ooh, this is the time to do it in New Orleans because otherwise they couldn't have done it.
If anybody cares about people having decent, safe, and sanitary places to live, I do. We should not put them back in the drug-infested, killing-infested environment that they came out of. And anyone who says that really don't care that much about these people. And I will say this today, that, it baffles me that people say, well, HUD does not want the residents to come back, specifically because they're black. Well, I think this morning I woke up and I was still black.
Tearing down the projects probably was not a bad idea per se, because subsidized housing in that manner just didn't work. But you've got to be able to marry some empathy and understanding with the new plan. If you just want to knock down the projects and put up townhouses and bring a certain type of person to this city, you're not going to have this city anymore, because the culture of the city came from poor black people.
I think it's very important everybody understand that there is no more St. Bernard. This is not St. Bernard. This is a new name here. Columbia Park at the Bayou District.
This is a former public housing site. It was demolished in December of 2007, and it's being rebuilt as a 990-unit mixed-income redevelopment, encompassing the 55 acres of the former St. Bernard housing project, and then hopefully some additional acreage on the other side of St. Bernard Avenue to kind of reduce the density of the entire development. This is a one-third mixed-income redevelopment, one-third public housing, one-third rent-assisted, and one-third market rate.
Tell me, in the United States, where you have people making $250,000 a year living next door to people making $20,000 a year in the same condominiums. And that's like, this utopian community. You don't have that, right? So that's a lie. You start off with a lie. I say start off with the truth. You wanted to tear down public housing because it's a public works project and you're trying to make some money for your friends. Okay, fine. It's not fine, but, tell me the truth. I'm a big girl. And then let this community figure out what they want to do about it. That truth has been told now because you can drive around the city of New Orleans and you can see what has replaced, quote, public housing.
Okay, we're going to go down here to the new stuff they built. And this stuff here, you need to understand the difference between this stuff and the old stuff is that they built this in like 90 days, more or less 90 days. And I think I kind of look at this stuff, it's like a supermodel. It look good on the outside, but it's anorexic and bulimic and probably full of drugs. So this area here is this is a new alternative. One of the things that they said was the purpose of getting rid of public housing was to decrease the density, to give people more space. But if you look at it, this is actually more dense. And it's a cheaper form of a project. In the beginning, when we first came here to clean up, and they put us out. 3 days later, and again, I don't want to say that I have problems with Hispanics or immigrants. I'm only saying from our perspective, we were excluded from our own neighborhood. So these guys here, who probably need their job, but basically they have been used to get this stuff done as cheaply as possible, to the exclusion of even young black guys that could plant a tree. All of these low-wage minimal jobs that we used to do, they've been excluding us from even that. So, I mean, it's basically nothing you could do in New Orleans except be illegal.
A lot of memories, you know, and there's a lot of spirits, you know, the good people that we used to play music for, you know, that used to, every time we walked up the block, they coming out their house and just whatever they have on, with robes on and cut-off shorts, high socks, you know. I'm talking about it, then you pass out the block, they could be cooking, they'll turn the fire off and come back and finish cooking after we walk around and have fun. There's a lot of spirits and beautiful people that lost their homes down there.
There's not a lot of means to rebuild in parts of Ninth Ward, considering that the majority of the population there was extremely poor. Some people sold their homes to road home, got a fraction of what it would cost to actually build a new home, and they can't come back. Then you have new houses being built all the time, and you have the Make It Right and the Brad Pitt houses, the Lower Nine Nina, and other groups that are working to rebuild the Ninth Ward, but the task at hand is daunting.
I've had a love for this place for a long time, and like many, we were couldn't believe the ineptitude of the recovery effort, and coming down here and hearing people's stories and the frustration with not finding a clear path home, we naively thought we could help out. And it turns out I know a little bit about building. I certainly know people who know a lot about building. And we figured if we could bring them in, led by the community, and let the community shape it, appeal to the kindness of strangers, raise a few bucks, that we could actually become the catalyst in this hardest hit of areas.
We started construction here in the Lower Ninth Ward about a year and a half ago. Brad Pitt came down and toured this area. This was 2 years after the storm, and this area was still totally devastated. And so Brad convened a group of community leaders and residents, people living in FEMA trailers in this area, and asked them to come together and tell us about their needs.
He didn't come in like a straight developer and say, let me sell you what let me sell you something and hope that you buy it. He said, this is what I envision, this is what I can bring to the table, and I want you all to come to the table in a fair way and help me to do this and give me feedback about what is actually doable in this community.
While the rest of the federal government and banks were saying, let's not rebuild the Lower Ninth. It's a largely black, below sea level community. Let's forget about it. It's not part of the new Orleans. Brad went in there and started building these homes, and you go down there, and people are coming from all over the world to look at them.
We actually have 21 different architecture firms from all over the world and here locally as well who design houses for this project. He reached out to the architects that he respects the most and asked them to contribute their designs on a pro bono basis.
What you see here now is just under 50 houses either lived in or under construction. But it's more than that. We rejected the idea that affordable housing has to use crap materials, toxic materials, and appliances that run up a family's utility bills.
As you can see here, we've put solar panels on all the houses, and these panels on a day like today provide enough electricity to run the entire house. So this house is feeding electricity back to the grid, which makes the electricity bills next to nothing.
They are safe because we don't know. We don't know about this wall here. We know it's safer, but we have to make sure that these homes are going to be here if something like that were to happen again.
All of the houses are raised above the Katrina level flooding in this area, and they all have access onto the roof. So as you know, too many people died in their attics when they couldn't cut through the roof.
And on top of that, we would add high design. And as you can imagine, those four components are diametrically opposed, so it was no small feat. And to do that, we had to re-examine all our building practices, look for inefficiencies, and I have to say, it's exceeded my expectations.
All of the participants in the program are former Lower Ninth Ward residents. The houses cost about $150,000 on average, and we work with each family to see what they can afford. And we ask that everyone contribute as much as they can, but no family will pay more than 30% of their income towards total housing costs.
Hi, Deirdre. Good to see you again. You look very nice. I'm all right. How are you doing?
Was your home originally here?
Yes. I had a brand new home. We had it like 14 months before Katrina, and it was totally destroyed. That's when I applied for the program, and I was accepted. It's beautiful. Energy efficient. We can afford the mortgage. We can afford the, utilities and everything. I have a private loft and a balcony in my master bedroom. I didn't even know what a loft was, and I love my home. I love it. I love it.
People didn't realize that I believe something like 62% of the homes in the Lower Ninth Ward were owner-occupied. There were like 3,000 structures and 14,000 people. Brad Pitt is doing an unbelievable job in the Ninth Ward, one man trying to rebuild the entire Lower Ninth Ward by himself.
On the other hand, there's a frustration because there's still tens of thousands of families trying to get back. And the answer now is how to replicate this thing, how to spread it.
All of this is being done in the absence of what government should be doing, whether it's through the federal government or holding the state and the local governments accountable for the money that does exist that should be going towards homeowners and renters. It's government that is most responsible for restoring these people's homes and lives.
On August 29th, 2005, Hurricane Katrina made landfall upon the Louisiana and Mississippi Gulf Coast, bringing devastation to many communities. In New Orleans, storm surge and the failure of the levee system caused flooding in over 80% of the city, trapping thousands. In the chaotic aftermath, New Orleanians faced desperate circumstances in homes, hospitals, the Superdome, and other makeshift shelters. Despite the heroic efforts of first responders, medical personnel, volunteers, and the military, over 1,100 citizens lost their lives in the disaster.
Post-Katrina healthcare was just ridiculous. My mother got cancer. We found out she was diagnosed with cancer in 2006. And in November of 2006. And because the infrastructure in the city and the surrounding area was so weakened, we had to go to Texas in order to get her treatment. And we had to wait, actually. She had to be put on a waiting list to start treatment. So she was diagnosed in November, and she really didn't start treatment until February of 2007. And I think that my mother's story is happening often, too often, for a lot of people who live here.
And then 5 months later, July 1st of 2008, then my mom, she passed away. She died of a massive heart attack. And so when she passed away, the grieving, it was really, really tough on me and really hard on me and my son because he raised my son, Sheldon Alexander Jr., pretty much like, she did for me. And it just was a This was at that point in time I didn't know what was going to happen. I kind of felt like, I was going to die next. Like, so many people just was dying. I was just like, man, and they just dying all around me.
The fact of the matter is, persons with any sort of chronic disease, any sort of ailment, that ailment was invariably worsened by Hurricane Katrina.
Well, the official number given is 1,582. 1,582 individuals died. But I can't tell you that that's an accurate number.
We don't exactly know the number of persons that have died after Hurricane Katrina as a result of the stress and the pain and the difficulty in receiving medical care since the storm. For that number continues to grow and continues to be here. We have not seen the end of this. This only continues.
We had transfer trauma deaths. People would arrive in another state. They'd be on a bus, or they would have been on a plane or wherever they were on. They were not eating. They were dehydrated when they got there. They were elderly. They've been separated from the things that are important to them, such as their grandchildren. I remember being in the back of an ambulance with an elderly lady, and her main concern were her children, or her grandchildren. And no comforting in the world could stop her concern. And here she was in congestive heart failure, and that stress on top of everything else. I don't know how she ultimately fared, but we got her out of the acute environment. But those types of stressors kill people.
The stress and the pain and the suffering of this is something that is felt not just in the mind, but in the heart and in the body. And we've had people perish in times when we can't find any identifiable medical reason for them to perish, other than we frankly think they died of a broken heart.
My life changed a great deal, not so much for me, but in terms of seeing my friends and everything, my family and what they had to go through. I've had a couple of friends that have had to not so much be put away, but are under observation and stuff, and I think it's just from the absolute stress everybody's been through.
I mean, it was like I drove into shooting and looting and carrying on, and the buildings were burning, and I could see the dome, and the dome, the roof was ripped off, and there was a Turkish chicken down the corner. It looked like it was on fire. And, I mean, I kind of stopped in the middle of the neutral ground, and you take that in because you're just not ready for that.
I had a heart attack last October, out of the blue.
You think that was because of the stress?
It's a combination of it all, and not taking the best care of myself that I possibly could, but I don't think that's really possible for everybody.
This is my daughter, Serena, was drowned. Hurricane Katrina. She was 5 years old, and I never got a chance to say goodbye. And I miss her so much. I didn't want to have the service in New Orleans because I blame New Orleans for her death, the way they went about doing things, and I think if it would have been done a little bit different, I would feel different, but it's just not. I don't think New Orleans is fit for me to live in. In late 2007, my mom called me constantly to drive to New Orleans, like every other weekend. And my oldest brother was sick, and they had a lot of medical things going on that she didn't understand. So I came down from New Orleans, and I would visit the hospital frequently and, go over some of the terms with her. And I came to the decision, instead of me driving all the time, I just decided that I would move back. I am a cashier at Walmart part-time right now, and I'm in school, going to school for nursing, and I want to be the first one to actually be the first child of all my mom's kids that can actually say that I have a college education. I want to have a career and pursue all of my dreams and be able to raise my two sons, Armando and Jamal, raise them and I guess just have a normal life. And I don't want to have my sons to be raised here in New Orleans because a lot of kids in New Orleans, they're not able to pursue a dream. And I want my sons to be able to pursue a dream and make something positive of themselves.
Mr. Penn.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Corker, I've been on the ground in Haiti since the first week following January's earthquake as NGO Director and CEO for the JP Haitian Relief Organization. I come here today in hope that we'll address the razor's edge upon which Haiti lies so that all in our own country, all that our country has given, will not be washed away with this rainy season from disease and flood.
What we're going to do is basically we're here to supply doctors where they're needed and supply security for and transportation for those doctors to get there.
Port-au-Prince and New Orleans are sister cities. When I saw the tragedy of Haiti, since memory, man, it immediately made me think of Katrina and what happened in New Orleans. It made me realize our kinship was greater than I thought it was in an unfortunate way.
Both Katrina and the earthquake in Haiti are cataclysmic events of historic proportions. It's almost biblical in presentation. And you see in Haiti the American government, Barack Obama, showing the care of the federal government in a much faster way, even though it's not American soil. There was an immediate outpouring, immediate sense of that we're going to do something.
The beginning of this problem is not earthquake, it's poverty. You ask about Katrina and what similarities there might have been. I mean, the similarity is flat out race. There's no possible way that if this was a white island, that this kind of incredible neglect by a superpower neighbor could happen.
I was one of the first reporters in, I think maybe the first Wednesday morning. I don't know. It's weird talking about because it's unlike anything I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of different places, but I've never seen anything like what I saw in Port-au-Prince.
The earthquake in Haiti makes Katrina look like a delightful garden party. Several 100,000 people dead. Leadership decapitated by natural disaster.
Je veux préciser que cet argent qui a été collecté à travers toutes ces activités n'est pas entre les mains du gouvernement haïtien, mais entre les mains des organisations internationales. On a 1 500 000 personnes aujourd'hui dans les rues. Nous nous réunissons avec tous ces ONG qui ont trouvé de l'argent à travers votre générosité aux États-Unis, en France, etc., pour voir combien d'argent ils ont et combien de maisons de transition ils peuvent financer.
This is the Peshawar Club. It used to be a golf course. We had originally about 30,000 IDPs. People would spontaneously come into this open space after their homes had been destroyed in the earthquake from the Soldelmos area. And then over a period of just a couple of weeks, went up into the 40,000s, eventually up to 60,000 people.
The disaster in Haiti also revealed centuries of exploitation and underdevelopment and the failure of Western countries like the United States, France, and Western Europe to treat Haiti fairly and equitably.
Louisiana would not be part of the United States without the Haitian Revolution. There's tremendous fear that as they were called at the time, French Negroes would contaminate the North American slaves with the virus of rebellion.
Haiti has suffered since the Revolution for rising up, black folks in Haiti, slave and free, and defeating the great army of Napoleon and convincing Napoleon to sell Louisiana to the United States and cut his losses. Haiti has paid ever since.
Everyone, let's go ahead and get started. It's noon. We have a lot of business to cover today.
If the really strong winds clip Lake Pontchartrain, that's going to pile some of that water from Lake Pontchartrain over on the south side of the lake. I don't think anyone can tell you with any confidence right now whether the levees will be topped or not, but that's obviously a very, very great concern.
I do want to thank the good folks in the offices of Louisiana and Alabama and Mississippi for listening to these warnings and preparing your citizens for this huge storm.
FEMA's been on the ground for 4 days, going into the 5th day. Why no massive airdrop of food and water? In Banda Aceh, in Indonesia, they got a food drop 2 days after the tsunami struck.
We're feeding those people in the convention center. We have fed over 150,000 people as of last night. That is happening.
But I guess the point is, as of last night, sir, forgive me, I have to stop you here.
What we're hearing is that we're hearing people's frustration. There are people that are beginning to manifest themselves out of the community that we didn't know that were there.
Why are you discovering this now? It's 5 days that FEMA's been on the ground. The head of police says it's been 5 days that FEMA's been there. The mayor, the former mayor, putting out SOSs on Tuesday morning, crying on national television saying, please send in some troops. So the idea that, yes, I understand that you're feeding people and trying to get in there now, but it's Friday. It's Friday.
Whether people want to believe it or not, I hadn't slept for like 4 days. And so when someone asked me a question, when did you learn about the convention center? I said, we just learned about it. Because to me, that's all part of that 96 hours. I just learned about it. And I'll never forget being stunned. She kept asking me, how can you say that? And I'm thinking, well, I can say it because we learned about it at the same time you learned about it. And only after I left the truck and realized that I had an aide tell me, you understand what she was saying, and you were giving this answer that made it sound like you didn't know about it for 24 hours. I literally lost my cool. I'll tell you a little secret. I walked out of that truck. The kid told me what was going on. I got so mad I started kicking, cussing, and pounding on what I learned later was the CNN truck.
I don't know why it took FEMA so long to realize people were there. I mean, the news media carried it. The FEMA representatives knew about it. It just didn't get up the line.
I was on the telephone with the White House every single day, multiple times each day, asking for very specific assistance. In my very first conversation before the storm even hit, I told the president we would need all that he had. But the bottom line is they were late for the game and trying to move the blame. They were trying to shift the blame to me, to the mayor, to anyone else besides the federal players.
Secretary Chertoff didn't know what he was doing, let's be frank. He didn't know what he was doing. He came to the game late. He had been a trial lawyer and a judge most of his life, and frankly didn't know what was going on. And the insertion of those kinds of factors in the middle of a disaster always complicates the disaster and makes it even worse.
There were people in FEMA who were screaming out saying, you know, look, this is all going wrong. You've got to get more stuff in here, more help in here. But it just wasn't happening.
There was a video conference call between me and the president, the chief of staff, Karl Rove, I think Cheney was on, and several members of the cabinet, in which I told the president that it was my belief. I mean, we're talking the first time, just as the storm had passed, that 95% of New Orleans had been devastated, that logistically it was going to be very difficult to move things around, and that I needed at least the 82nd Airborne to take over logistics for me. I've wondered for 3 or 4 or 5 years now, what caused that gap between me telling the President what I needed and Honore and the group showing up finally on Friday, or actually even beyond that. And I finally found out the answer in Vanity Fair, and that was this. Rumsfeld was back in D.C. in the Pentagon having a debate about he didn't want to send the people in. So we wasted 5 days while the bureaucracy and the cabinet argued about what assets they should give me. But as I tell people, it's one thing to be driven, to have the bus run over you, but when the bus is driven by the President of the United States, all you can do is just get up and keep on going.
But right now, the immediate concern is to save lives and get food and medicine to people so we can stabilize the situation. Again, I want to thank you all for, and Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job.
If you look at that video clip closely, you'll see me wince. And the reason I'm wincing is we had just been in the green room at that Naval Air Station in which I had been describing to the President how bad things were, telling him what I needed, why things weren't working, what we needed to put in place. And then we walk out, and he makes that comment, and I'm like, what the hell?
And Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job. And Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job. And Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job.
I often tell my children that I never planned to or wanted to be in the obituaries of the New York Times, but now I guarantee you, Spike, I'll be in the obituary, and what will be the headline? Brownie, you did a heck of a job. Or Brownie, you weren't doing a heck of a job. But somehow they'll incorporate that phrase into the obit.
What about on your headstone?
No way. Cremate me and throw me in the mountains.
Not on your headstone?
Not on the headstone. Come on.
The Department of Defense put the baton under my command. I was told to go ahead and move to Louisiana, and I landed in a Navy helicopter. Myself, my aide, and a couple of staff officers. The helicopter came down over the Superdome. It's a sight I'll never forget. With so many of our people standing outside the Superdome, there must have been 15,000 people there. People have been standing there. Some of them had been there over the weekend, had arrived there as early as Saturday. And that was a long walk between that helicopter and that building. It looked like 100 meters turned into a mile because I felt ashamed to see them standing there, that something hadn't happened, that they were trapped in the city.
Good morning. Yesterday was a good day. We made much progress in building our capability in the area of operation in Mississippi as well as in Louisiana. The next 24 hours will be critical to us as we are trying to evacuate the 25,000 people at the convention center. We will do our best to continue to do that over the next 24 hours. Over.
By the time Friday afternoon comes, you got to remember things were going wild in the media. There were people talking about looting. Matter of fact, on Thursday, we had a request and an announcement had been made, people will be shot on sight.
We're going to restore law and order. We are not going to put up with the kinds of things that we have heard.
These troops know how to shoot and kill, and they are more than willing to do so if necessary.
Don't do that. I said people in survival mode, many of them at the convention center, they're getting their food and water out of the hotels. And I would tell people, hey, look, what would you do if you were standing there with your family? The chief of police had said something about snipers. That created a lot of drama there.
We've been getting reports that there have been snipers.
Sniper shots and a helicopter sniper fire.
So there was an aura. Imagine the troops showing up Friday afternoon. They watched that on the news the night before, that the city was kind of under siege. And I stood at the corner of Porter Street and Convention Street and watched the initial convoy of troops come up. And lo and behold, every one of them was in the combat stance looking for snipers. And I knew at that moment, seeing those weapons locked and loaded, just one mistake could have changed the outcome of Katrina.
Hey, weapons down! Weapons down, damn it! Put the weapons down! Put those damn weapons down! I'm gonna play that game back, damn it! Get those goddamn weapons down!
At that time, when we turned at Padres and convention, for whatever reason, there was a large number of elderly ladies and women with babies. And that was not a sight they needed to see. The United States Army coming in with weapons drawn on them, and all they're doing is waiting on a ride.
Put those weapons down, damn it! Swing them!
Not just the levees broke, the smell broke away from my skin when I came out of the waters. The waters that came and stood still with the bodies of my people. The dogs, shit, piss, rats, snakes, and herd of alligators. The broken smiles, the broken minds, the broken lives. We were looking for a home when we were in the FEMA trailer. The apartment complexes, the prices were completely price gouged, so we knew we weren't going that route. So we figured if we were going to pay that much for an apartment, which had almost doubled and tripled, we could do that for a mortgage and say we are on our way to owning something of our own. So we finally said, well, let's stop here. But it was kind of tore down. The fence was torn down. Everything was just horrible looking. We bought the house when my husband started the garage. It's a 4-car garage. And compact cars. That was the sale. But when we started, I knew it. And then when we saw the kitchen, I was like, this is it. There's nothing positive about living in a FEMA trailer. Not for me. I mean, again, like I said before, people grow up in trailer parks and that's all good for them. But I was not born in a trailer park or in a trailer. And so I was used to my space. My 1-bedroom apartment that I had before Katrina hit was good for me. My energy was good. My thinking was good. I was moving. I was growing. But it stifles your thinking. And I was dying.
Committee will please come to order. Today the committee is holding its second hearing on formaldehyde in FEMA trailers. What we learned at that hearing outraged Americans all across the country. FEMA had a duty to protect families living in its trailers, and it failed them.
It became apparent to a number of people, a number of government agencies about the fall of 2006 that there were problems with the trailers that had been acquired by a government agency known as FEMA. They had acquired approximately 140,000 trailers for billions of dollars, and these trailers were intended to provide a place for the victims of Katrina.
When I first received word that I was going to be given a trailer, it was a very joyous moment. I didn't know whether to jump up and down or get on my knees and say thank you. But sometimes you have to be careful of what you wish for.
I got a FEMA trailer, into a FEMA trailer in March of 6. There were things that was making me sick in the trailer, and I didn't have the realization sense of knowing at the time that I was being contaminated.
Unfortunately, these trailers were mass-produced. They were produced very, very rapidly. And as a result of rapid production and sometimes production that was subpar, the trailers were built with substandard materials containing formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is a chemical which has many, many uses in our society. It's found in cosmetics, it's found in food, it's produced naturally by the body, but unfortunately people are not designed to live in a formaldehyde environment.
When FEMA trailers show up and they have formaldehyde, there's no excuse for that. But to give you some perspective, somebody said, we have to have thousands of trailers, and they go out and they say, boom, 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 make it happen. And then you start cutting corners. Manufacturers start cutting corners, and the quality control people start cutting corners, and nobody's willing to stand up and say, woo, let's slow down just a little bit and make sure we do it right.
The bad thing about this is, in my case, I ended up working for the trailer companies. I became a maintenance personnel. My job was to go out and fix FEMA trailers for about 2 years, which I did. One day, I was working on a trailer, and it was extremely strong. It was in the summertime. And all of a sudden, it came to me the smell I was smelling, which I didn't know what it was identical to when I was in high school and you dissect your first frog. When you open up the bottle, the jar, the formaldehyde. That's when I realized what it was.
I've been diagnosed with congestive heart failure. I have very difficult breathing, and I'm on a lot of medication. And I'm losing, according to the doctors, I'm losing blood, and they don't know why.
Sometimes upon entering a trailer, there'd be a person there, sometimes a grandmother with quite a few little kids. And the kids would have runny nose, watery eyes, and they'd be crying. And especially the ones that had any kind of asthma, any kind of breathing problems. These kids suffered the most because they were constantly running back and forth to the doctors trying to figure out what was wrong. And they suffered dearly, these little kids, and the old people, especially the elderly.
80% of the people in the trailers were African American. FEMA bought these units from various manufacturers. And then we have a trial coming up against Forest River. Forest River is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, which is the brainchild of Warren Buffett. There are about 85 to 90,000 suits that have already been filed.
The Sierra Club, which we work very closely with, began doing testing of the formaldehyde. The response that they got initially was, it's not a problem. And we had federal agencies under the Health and Human Services trying to suppress that information as opposed to dealing with it.
I think there was a major profit motive involved. The trailers were purchased for somewhere between $8,500 and $10,000 per unit. That's my understanding. The installation costs often exceeded the cost of the hardware, the cost of the trailer. And when you multiply these numbers times 140,000, it's billions of dollars.
But this issue is bigger than just trailers and the toxic formaldehyde that's lacing them. The reasons thousands of people are left in these trailers being exposed to these chemicals is because this administration, the Bush, Jackson, Chertoff administration, their disaster housing program is a disaster itself.
Victor Zilmer. I am a Lieutenant Colonel, Army Corps of Engineers in Reserve. I'm here in my civilian capacity. I'm the resident manager for this project. My background's military. If it's not ready on time, people die. So that's why they brought me in here. I've done a lot of high-velocity, high-intensity projects in the past. Normally it takes 17 to 30 years to build something like this. We're building it in 3. The wall itself is designed to protect St. Bernard Parish, 9th Ward, New Orleans Metro, and New Orleans East from surge. It has as much steel as 8 Eiffel Towers. It has as much concrete to fill football fields into the end zones to a depth of 93 feet. It is the largest surge barrier of its kind in the world because the storms here in New Orleans are bigger, meaner, and more of them.
Dear Army Corps of Engineers, I just want to let you know you effed my life up.
The levees didn't just break on their own. It was from shoddy and shitty engineering work, and you guys knew it. You knew it.
The day the levees failed was a really black day for the civil engineering profession in the United States. The levees failed before the hurricane had even made landfall.
New Orleans, 5 years after Katrina, still has not a proper levee system.
I do have confidence that the work being done since Katrina is good quality work.
Something happened at the end of 2009 which could change the whole picture. Some lawyers filed a suit against the federal government over the Mississippi River Gulf Outlet Channel and its contribution to the flooding of New Orleans. You can't sue the Corps of Engineers if a levee fails, But you can sue them if a navigation channel adds to the flooding.
The Corps science was absolutely pathetic at trial. Their whole theory was to demonstrate to the judge that the levees failed because the waters went over the top. But there was only one problem with that. We showed that the levees failed before the water went over the top. We were successful in obtaining videotape from one of the local news stations' antenna towers, which showed water reaching that tower at approximately 8:30 on August 29th, 2005.
Turns out that the security camera at the Fox 8 transmitter in Chalmette was rolling as the building was swamped.
Nobody really knew if the camera worked that day until engineers rebuilding our studios hooked up the machine.
Today we looked at it and, whoa, this really shows what happened.
At least 12 feet of water invades the transmitter site. It happens in less than 20 minutes.
We were able to pinpoint the time at which the water actually got to St. Bernard Parish. Now, science tells us that the surge got to its highest point at 8:30, which is the same time. So there's a big problem there. The question was then, how did the water go over the top of the levee, fill up the central wetlands unit, which takes 2 hours, and then reach the 40-yard front canal at 8:30 at the same time? There was no way to make that work.
Those levees that protected St. Bernard were made of dredge material and mostly sand. And so the waves had chewed these levees into just little fragments of sand an hour before landfall of the storm.
But it gets worse because the Corps knew this. And instead of coming into the courtroom with some science or some explanation, the Corps simply told the judge, the peak surge didn't happen at 8:30. The peak surge happened at 7:30. Which, of course, made them look like idiots because their own experts, their own IPET report, showed that the peak surge was at 8:30.
Judge Stanley Duval issued a landmark 156-page decision declaring victory for the residents of St. Bernard Parish and the Lower Ninth Ward and condemning the Army Corps for monumental negligence, gross neglect, and willful failure to protect the people and the property of New Orleans and St. Bernard Parish.
He found that it was the Mystico that caused those levees to fail, not Hurricane Katrina. And because Mystico is a navigation channel, the Corps doesn't enjoy an immunity. And because they enjoy no immunity, we were able to get a judgment against them.
As a result of this victory, at least 100,000 local residents and businesses in the two affected areas of St. Bernard Parish and the Lower Ninth Ward will finally get justice.
Whoa. When I heard that the courts allowed the Army Corps of Engineers to be sued, I was like, hooray, I'm so glad they allowed it. But, okay, they're being sued, they're going to be able to disperse money to this person and that person, but that does not bring back anyone that was hurt in that incident. It doesn't bring back life. It doesn't matter how much money you give. It's not going to bring back my daughter, Serena Polk.
What's very important for the viewer to understand is tonight, when you sit in your home, in your den, in your lounge, look around you. Look at all your possessions, your family, and imagine how you would feel if tomorrow morning everything that you own was gone. Your home, your possessions. On top of that, you didn't have a job anymore, your parents didn't have a job anymore, and you were living 500 to 1,500 miles away. How would you feel, especially knowing it wasn't your fault?
Marble.
Lisa Marble.
And we are here at 1124 2nd Street in Gulfport, Mississippi.
I was 9 months pregnant and didn't want to leave. And everyone basically told me I had no choice but to leave. And we basically knew when it was going to be a Category 5 hurricane that we were out of here. So we left about 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon, the day before the storm.
And we drove to a hotel room we were supposed to have in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, which didn't pan out. It took us 6 hours to get to there, and lo and behold, we got there and we didn't have a hotel room.
We really had no place to go. All the hotels were booked everywhere, so we just decided that we would try to come home. We went to like a store and bought all kinds of supplies that we thought we might need.
Chainsaws, bicycles, water, gas.
We bought like literally $500 worth of junk, piled it in.
Food, etc., to bring back with us, and we just filled up everything we could and drove back.
There were huge pots of just nothing.
Holes in the road, and debris everywhere.
Cracks, holes, everything. We were driving. We couldn't even figure out which one was the street that we normally turn on.
Correct. Yeah, it was impossible to tell which road was ours, and we finally got there and went ahead and stopped and got out and walked up the road and started seeing debris filled and recognizing some of our own belongings.
It was like 5 foot high of debris all the way to the end of the road. And we started seeing things in the trees that belong, our clothes. We'd see our chairs in other people's yards, and we knew it was bad. But I honestly thought this thing would be completely down. As we came up, and I'm like 9 months pregnant, we'd crawl over about 5 feet of rubble and see that our whole bottom floor basically was all just. It looked like a bomb hit it, but it was still had like stilts. It was weird.
Protocol says it is not appropriate to introduce the President of the United States. So before I present the President, I have to thank him, his administration, and this Congress for the unprecedented package of assistance that is being provided to Mississippi.
At the time of Katrina, Governor Kathleen Blanco was in office. She didn't get the money. Haley Barbour, who was at the time governor of Mississippi, did get money from FEMA, from the federal government. That reality is not is something that flows from the operation of the law, the Stafford Act. If the president has complete discretion in shaping a response or deciding not to shape a response, it's all a matter of discretionary authority. How are you going to get the president to say yes to you? And so those political dynamics play a central role in the outcomes of disaster response and reconstruction and those and programs related to the post-disaster policies.
We had a very large proportion of the damage done to our state. We had 75% of the damage, and Mississippi had 23%. But every time they gave out money for medical needs or hospitals or schools or anything like that, they would give us an near equal share. When we had 75% of the damage, and they had 23% of the damage.
What was so evident was our people are strong, resilient, self-reliant people. They weren't looking for somebody to blame. They weren't whining. Our people are not into victimhood. Our people got knocked down by the worst disaster in American history and got right back up, hitched up their britches, and went to work. Went to work helping themselves and helping their neighbors. That's why we made so much progress. It helps when you have the most respected, the most influential, the most powerful pair of United States senators in the country representing your state, and we got them.
They had a political response instead of a humanitarian response, and we were only asking for proportionate response. We just wanted the dollars to flow in proportion to the damage. That's all we wanted. Not anything more, but not anything less. And we got less every single day.
Governor Barbour was an ex-lobbyist and the head of the Republican Party. He is about the best wired governor a state could have at the time a hurricane struck. So what happened is that he turned to the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator Thad Cochran, another Mississippian, and got everything he wanted the first time out. Then he went back again and asked for additional money to fund the state port. But at that time, he got turned down. So later, after he had spent money on homeowners and lower income folks' needs still were to be met, he decided to take about $600 million away from housing and put it towards expansion of this port. Well, you see two very different kind of recoveries. I mean, if you just spun your camera around, you'd see these bright gleaming buildings and these fancy new structures, but then if you looked over the ledge here, what you'd see is a rotting public library. I mean, that's the whole problem here. If it has to do with a bridge, if it has to do with an airport, or if it has to do with a port, or if it has to do with casinos, it's going to happen. And the thing that, you know, is our human part, our culture, is sitting down there rotting, empty, wires hanging out of the ceiling. Why is Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana always neck and neck to be last? We just seem to undervalue the importance of broad societal programs that help lift everybody up.
So going forward, we have to develop an economy that's greater than just tourism, greater than just, you know, partying. That maybe was that of the past, but that can be that of the future in the 21st century.
New Orleans is the most African city in the country, and all we know is not to look back. That we just got to go forward. We just accept and deal with the momentary good times, and so we drink. And when we drink, it loosens us up, and we can then share and talk and let out all that's been wearing us down and beating us up, and we eat.
My name is Carrie Seaton. I am Willie Mae's great-granddaughter, and I am currently running, operating, and cooking all of the food that has been handed down to me. It has been under my control since Katrina. August of 2005, Hurricane Katrina came and wiped us out. In this area, we had 4 feet of water, and we had to do a complete renovation of the building. 2 years later, we reopened to find out that we were nominated and awarded the best fried chicken in America by Bon Appetit magazine and the Food Network.
There's a saying that in the world, people eat to live. In New Orleans, we live to eat.
We have po' boys, oyster po' boys, shrimp po' boys.
I mean, we have overstuffed po' boys, fried shrimp, fried oysters.
We have mustard green, ham hock, cornbread, cabbage with pigtails.
Red beans and rice on Mondays, meatball spaghetti on Tuesdays.
Spaghetti and meatballs special.
We have alligators,
pigtails, and ham hocks.
We have all kinds of stuff.
Down here, if it don't have the pork in it, then people ain't eating it.
We have country fried pork chop, country fried chicken fried pork chop, breaded pork chop, and fried pork chop.
We eat anything pretty much here, and we are fried.
Fried catfish served with potato salad.
I got gallstones. So when I told my doctor I'm having a pain in my side, she did the thing or whatever. She said, you have gallstones. I said, well, how do I stop the pain? Stop eating fried food. Guess what? I don't eat the fried. Well, moderation, because you gotta have the fried food. I'm sorry. I gotta have my fried. People hate when I say this, but I like fried chicken. Shit.
Fried chicken.
We are overweight, undereducated, always eating as a means of comforting ourselves, like our diet and the food that we eat is a drug.
There are medicines and health care that can help them live long, healthy lives with the right access to that. The problem is with the lack of that access, I have 28 and 29 and 30-year-old people who are on dialysis or having heart attacks or having strokes. When with the right medicines and the right access, they probably would not have that happen.
Imagine this, an elevated highway right through the heart of the French Quarter. In 1960, it was considered the biggest economic boon to the city ever. They said it was a done deal, but today we're grateful that it didn't happen. The right decision was made. Now, history repeats itself. Another done deal is in the works. It includes abandoning the landmark Charity Hospital, along with its historic medical district, and clearing 27 city blocks. This includes demolition of up to 165 historic buildings. The neighborhood will vanish.
There's a myth out there that Katrina and the floods that followed destroyed Charity Hospital. But the truth is that only the basement flooded.
About 10 days after Katrina, me and one of my colleagues actually organized the cleanup efforts at Charity Hospital. I was there. The 82nd Airborne was there. General Bill Caldwell was there. General Honore was there. We had a 3-star general, a 2-star general. We had doctors, medical students, community people who wanted to come help get the city back on track. Over 200 people cleaned out Charity and got it ready to take on patients as early as October. The problem is that the state decided they were not going to go into Charity Hospital.
If you were born in New Orleans before 1966, you were born one of 3 places. You were born either at home, if you were fortunate enough, you may have been born at Flint Goodrich Hospital, which was an African-American private hospital, or you were born at Charity.
I was born at Charity Hospital December 24th, 1963. My entire family was born at Charity Hospital.
It was built in the mid-30s. In its heyday, it had over 3,000 inpatient rooms, to give you some idea how big it was. Right before Katrina, we had approximately 500-plus beds. We saw about 200,000 ER visits a year and almost 400,000 outpatient clinics. That put it at one of the busiest hospitals in the country.
It was also the best place that you can go if you got shot. And I have to say this, and you went to Charity, your ass lived.
Charity Hospital was fantastic in taking care of our mental health population. We were able to bring them in. We had a quick and safe triage. They had a special room set up for our folks. They had beds upstairs. Many of the staff knew our people, sort of those with that chronic mental illness that they were seeing regularly. For the patients, they felt very safe and comfortable entering that facility. And we really anticipated, I remember being here and meeting with doctors, and they had been part of cleaning Charity, and there was such an excitement that it was coming back, and we were all going to be back working together.
The issue about Charity Hospital really is an issue about health care. Some people want to make it about the building. It's not about the building. It's about creating first-class health care for the people of the city of New Orleans, making sure that people have access to primary health care, people have access to acute health care. We have terrible health statistics in the city of New Orleans, not unlike what's going on in the rest of the country.
This is the plan that LSU and the VA have currently. What they want to do is abandon this downtown area and move over into this neighborhood. This is 70 acres of homes and businesses, and then rebuild 2 hospitals on it. There's not enough money that's going to demolish all this, rebuild this, and revitalize the downtown area.
The reason why LSU keeps popping up is because they were responsible to manage and run Charity Hospital. And their vision changed in the last 10 years. The vision was supposed to be, your job is to run Charity Hospital and take care of the indigent. That's what the chancellor had accomplished in getting the legislation changed. In the last few years, they decided we want to be more in the private health care business as well. And so this was an opportunity now to move away from the public hospital into a public-private venture.
The state contends that Charity Hospital is over 50% damaged because of Katrina, and therefore, pursuant to FEMA regulations, they deserve the replacement value for Charity.
The argument for not rebuilding Charity quickly was that we needed to wait on FEMA. And we needed to wait to see what the federal government was going to give us.
The federal government only wanted to put up $100 million. Look, this is really easy to understand. It's like somebody bumping into the back of your car and just beating the heck out of it and wanting to pay you for a little piece of the bumper that they put a dent in, right? And so we had to go to them and say, look, we can't do that. We're not going to settle this case with you for a nickel when you owe us $1. Forced us to go to Congress, get the law changed, forced us to go to arbitration, which we did. Not only did we win the arbitration, we knocked it out of the park. And we just received $467 million.
I'm not opposed to you trying to make a bigger, better, medical corridor for people, but, in the meantime, what are people going to do? And I think that has not been adequately addressed.
I want to tell you, I've lived here now for 37 years. I've never seen 70 neighborhood organizations all come together and say, we don't like this plan, we want you to look at another.
And working in this hospital when it was the second largest hospital in this country. Yeah.
went out and worked with people to get the money to have one of the major architectural firms in the country come in and say, look, you can make charity work.
They determined that this building was absolutely usable, that the way to use it is to gut the building, and it could be state-of-the-art 21st century hospital. This study is in a book called Innovative Healthcare Designs that just came out. Chapter 5 is on sustainability and how to reuse this correctly. Just can't hear it in Louisiana. After Katrina, the city begged people to come back and rebuild, and they did in Lower Mid-City. Lower Mid-City is a historic neighborhood. What will be demolished is 243 homes and businesses. 165 of these are historic. You've got schools, you've got businesses, and you've got lots of homes, many of which have been renovated using federal funds.
80 years ago, I was born in the front room of this house. It's a part of me now after 80 years. I would love to keep it, but they're taking it away from me, and I don't know what else I can do. A lady come up to me, she says, Wally, you ought to see this in the newspaper. The VA's buying your house. That's how I found out about it. The VA's never called me, never talked to me.
Now, federal money is going to destroy these houses. They're going to take eminent domain and buy these houses back. It's an incredible waste of our federal resources. It is just a sin. This is a sin.
They've been undercutting everybody on their houses. They haven't given anybody a fair price. And if the VA buys anything, that's federal government. The federal government's always treated everybody right. They're not treating us right with this property.
And in my opinion, looking at it and understanding the breadth and the scope of everything that we have to do, I think it's a wiser thing to do to build this economic engine that's going to provide thousands of jobs for people in the city of New Orleans, and I think that's the right way to go.
This house here is 125 years old. The house across the street is 110 years old. We got houses around here that's going to be bulldozed because they want to put up a hospital. There's nothing wrong with Charity Hospital, and there's nothing wrong with the Veterans Hospital. People that's worked in there came out and told me.
Part of what we have suffered from since the state decided not to reopen Charity Hospital, in addition to an increase in mortality and morbidity approaching 40% over pre-Katrina levels, we suffer from a mental health emergency.
The Mobile Crisis Unit is a specialized mental health unit that works within the New Orleans Police Department. It has been around for 29 years, and it is clearly a piece of gold. What we do is we respond to the 911 calls that come through the radio involving a person having a mental health crisis.
Sometimes people's brains is not able to handle everything. I can't handle it. I'm serious. I can't handle it. My mind is stuck.
For the first year after the storm, what I found to be most interesting is that the calls in general involved people that didn't have a mental health history.
I want to go in the hospital. I want to get help. I want to take medication. I want to get stable. I want to work. I want to do all that. I want to get straight.
Okay, we're going to have to go ahead and get it.
Okay, all right. I'll throw the cigarette out.
And they'll say to me, you know what? I was never like this before the storm. I was never like this. And I find that remarkable.
We have had a near nuclear bomb go off in the collective psyche of New Orleans. This system is so backed up now that people are stopping trying to come into the system voluntarily. Drinking through the charts. Drugs through the charts.
When I first got up to New York, I drank, like I told you before, a fifth and a half of Crown, bro. I didn't even catch a buzz. That's how amped up I was. Then I sat there and found some guy on the street that could give me some weed. That didn't do it either. And it's at that point that I started seeing myself going down the road, and that's about when I had the interview with you.
I've been on 6 different medications.
Name them.
Seroquel, Geodine, Zoloft, It's the only ones I can remember right now, but those are the ones I'm on right now. So I was so doped up, I was like a damn zombie. I spent a lot of time alone. I did. Because I didn't even like my own company. You know, I couldn't imagine people liking my company in the state of mind I was. I still take Xanax from time to time when I feel it. When I start feeling the rise of the energy and what I got going on inside, it's just all the compelling information going through my brain. I haven't been with a woman since the woman I was with. I haven't slept with any woman since. Not one. It's not because I don't want to. What I want right now is just have some peace of mind. I still don't sleep at night. I spend more time watching the sun go up and sun go down more than a person should. And my heart goes out to them, bro, because unless they got faith to get through it, a lot of them even went down the dope and crack alley, or a lot of them ended up in a bottle, or they ended up with the barrel of a gun. Those are the only three choices if you don't get help.
We have a rate of suicide more than twice the national average. We've got people suffering from depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, who don't have access to the treatment that they need.
We've lobbied the governor, Governor Jindal, to try and make sure that we got more mental health beds. And instead of us getting more, they took mental health beds out of the city and moved them across the lake to another community.
Our governor closed the only inpatient mental health hospital here in New Orleans last year.
We had a gentleman, an older gentleman in his 60s, and when we got to the scene, he had a loaded gun up to his head. And we did, 45-minute triage with him, and we got him to put that gun down and to take our hand and let us bring him to the hospital to get help. And by the time he got there, his mood was a little elevated, which is what we do. We give hope. And sat him down, and the nurse said, "Sir, now let me ask you something. Was the gun even loaded?" And I was like, "Yeah, the gun was loaded. This is serious." This is what we had to do with just about every individual that we brought in. For those that were lucky enough to have us bringing them in, I don't know what happened to the ones that tried to bring themselves in.
I always ask God to take me away from New Orleans. I want to live a different life, and I thought that was my blessing, not knowing this was going to really mess my head up. Oh, my God, this is beautiful.
Kathy Phipps signed a lease on a house that means a lease on a new life.
Oh, bless your soul.
She's moving into a community that's embracing her with open arms. When we first met Kathy, she was a hurricane evacuee, surprised to find herself in Utah.
Utah? I was really afraid there because I noticed I didn't see any black people. But I said, no, they probably come in. They'll come out when it's all over. Maybe they're thinking everybody's like me. They don't want to get involved with the faction, but they'll come out. When I noticed they wasn't coming out, I went to getting frightened living there by myself. When a lady told me it's 1% black in Utah, in Pleasant Grove, Utah, I said, why do people come in here? There I am, can't sleep, thinking somebody's going to come and just lynch us. It was sad. I blamed the police. I blamed the storm. I blamed the mayor. I blamed them all. Not knowing I was practically losing my mind. I was going crazy. So my husband said, no, I got to get you away from here. You look at you. You're just sitting there moping every day. You got to go. So we decided to move back here. Thinking that it was going to get better, I'm back home, I'm with my culture and all that. No. I'm not that happy, jolly person I used to be before. It affects everybody, the kids. So I don't go nowhere. I just work.
We have one large mental health public hospital in this city, and that's the jail. That's what we are doing now with our people who are mentally ill, and it's unconscionable.
A couple of years ago, highly respected young police officer, Nicola Cotton, was murdered by a mental health patient. This mental health patient, before Katrina, had been treated several times at Charity Hospital. He was provided effective, culturally competent care. He would go off his meds or have an episode, and the police would pick him up and bring him to the crisis intervention unit at Charity Hospital. The doctors would evaluate him, treat him, get him back on his meds, stabilize him, and before they released him, he'd have a plan of care. He would have counseling and therapy. He'd have housing assistance. In this case, this particular mental patient, a few weeks before he murdered Nicola Cotton, was picked up by the police, and he was brought to University Hospital, a state hospital with only about 160 beds. At University Hospital, they kept him in the emergency room for about a day and a half, and then they shipped him off to the State Mental Hospital in Mandeville, across the lake. They kept him there for about 10 days, pumped him up with Thorazine and some other drugs, turned him into a zombie, and released him. And not only did they release him, they drove him back to New Orleans. They dropped him off on Canal and Claiborne, and within days, he had a confrontation with Nicola Cotton, took her gun, and murdered her. I dare say that if Charity had been open, Nicola Cotton would be alive today.
This time I'm walking to New Orleans. I'm walking to New Orleans. I'm going to need your parachute when I get through walking me through. When I get back to New Orleans, I've got my suitcase in my hand. Now ain't that a shame? I'm leaving here today. Yes, I'm going back home to stay. Yes, I'm walking to New Orleans. You used to be my honey. Till you spit on my money. No use for you to cry. I see you by and by. I'm walking to New Orleans. I've got no time for talking. I've got to keep on walking. New Orleans is my home. That's the reason why I'm gone. Yes, I'm walking to New Orleans. I'm walking to New Orleans. I'm walking to New Orleans. I'm walking.